What's up, everybody? It's
a new year.
It's a new year, a new podcast, but familiar.
Now we're called The Boys.
The Boys
and
in the Hood.
I don't think that's a good thing.
We're back. It's
We are
2023,
back, and it's been a long time since we've said we're back.
and we're going to try to be intentional this year about staying back.
Yeah,
because our faithful listeners. Shout out Angie Haverly, Christian
honestly,
Haverly.
The Haverly
Bethany
family
Haverly.
altogether has put food on our table.
The Haverlys, although we make no money from this. But we're going to try to be back. We've said this before.
We have. You've said this before.
You've said it before.
I probably have.
But yeah, we're back. And sorry, it's been a while. Life's gotten crazy. I don't remember when the last one was, but I feel like, did we have a feature or was it just us?
I think it was just us when we were talking about how to reach young people. Right?
Oh, yeah, online. So we're back and we're going to try to be back for a bit. So, yeah. What are we talking about today?
Well, really, I just feel like we've got a lot of catching up to do. I mean, it's been like a year and a half since we've had any sort of podcast.
This is true.
But it's also a new year. And I think part of this podcast is just us. I feel like here's what it is. It's a real life documentary of two average dudes.
Two average Joes.
5'10".
My mom always told me
can't
that
jump.
Average people were the best people in the world. That's why God made so many of them.
Yeah, that's right. God loves average people
That's
best.
a quote from something. I don't remember
That's why I get straight C's.
I got 2 C- in Spanish. And they let me do Spanish 1 twice. They didn't advance me.
Me too. Me too.
Me.
And I passed because I gave them hand sanitizer and Kleenex.
Miss Hernandez.
Mine was
Herrera.
I don't remember.
It's got to be Herrera.
Anyway, we're two
average guys
who
love Jesus.
We do love Jesus.
We
and
like fishing.
We like fishing. Would you let me talk?
Sorry.
Just kidding. No, but yeah, I feel like the people are just kind of like watching us learn how to do ministry along the way. That's why it's like a documentary, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, Alan wanted to erase some of our old podcasts, but it's
out there, man.
Growth.
It's out there.
Yep.
There's probably some things.
Probably like 3 people.
We probably should do a whole episode of like, hey, what are some things that we've said in the past that we would maybe disagree with?
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting thing.
It's like my notes in my Bible. Like,
yeah, like wait, don't believe this.
So, okay.
Anyway, with all of that, I think what we were going to talk about is just like, what has this year kind of taught us ministry wise? Even just like,
what about one good thing, one bad thing
of this year?
Mm-hmm.
One good thing,
ministry related, anything related.
Yeah. I'd say a good thing that happened this year is I started seminary.
Nice.
And so that's actually been a huge blessing. It's been a lot in a lot of ways, but it's given me a lot of life. So that's been a good thing. Say bad thing. I would say like ministry has, in some ways turned into like a slow, steady grind, if that makes sense. And so in some ways I'm like learning how to do ministry for the long haul now. 'Cause it's like, I guess a weird analogy is like marriage. It's like the first couple of years you're like, woo, it's like, I don't understand why anybody has marriage problems at all or whatever, you know what I mean? And then you kind of like get in, you're like, oh wait, like this is,
I'm jacked up.
This is, yeah. And,
sure.
And I think, so I think that's probably, and well, I guess we can talk more into that because that's kind of even going into what I've learned this year.
Yeah.
But I think just learn that I'm full of pride and don't know much. So anyway, we'll get there. But Will, how about you, man? Good thing, bad thing.
I don't even remember if I had a kid the last time we recorded one of these.
Yeah, you just had. I remember we announced it to our listeners.
Oh, okay. So
all 7 of them.
Now I should probably throw in my gum also.
It's fine. I swear if you missed that
bucket. And
we're in my office.
That was nice. So yeah, Lily is a little over 1 now. She started walking last week. So I feel like that's been obviously a big part of my life in the last year is kind of her going from, because she was born 23rd of November. So most of our year was her being new. And so, yeah, that's been good.
I have a question for you. What have you learned like with that, like being a new parent in ministry?
Actually, I was just telling Cass this. I learned it yesterday.
Nice.
But
The Lord
there's
reveals.
a new he's not sponsoring this, although if he would like to, he can send us money. Prime Deion Sanders, who just took the job at
he would probably want
CU.
us. We're winners. I mean,
says he's a
he
Christian.
sponsors
he
winners.
Says he's a Christian,
so,
and we're winners.
So Deion, come down to Durango.
Average Joe
Maybe we can
winners.
squeeze you in, get you on the podcast sometime.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to let us know about a year and a half in advance.
We both played football in our day.
I did.
Alan
I was
in middle school, and me into.
I was really. I had one interception, so I'm probably competing with him.
Offered Adams State. So
did you? Yeah, you're way better.
No,
that was in 6th grade. I had an interception, and I was so well. I was a tiny kid.
Yeah,
I was like 50 pounds in 6th grade, and once I intercepted the ball, I was like, "This is the worst
the best player in the world."
Oh no, because then I had to get then people were trying to tackle me. I was like, "I'm gonna die.
Get out of my face."
Anyway, so not much of an aggressive guy, but anyway,
Deion Sanders.
Yes, sorry.
That's where we were. He's got like a documentary out about his time at Jackson State, where he was a coach before this job. And he said something to all his coaches in a meeting, which was really good. He was like, don't let home influence your work. Don't let work influence your home. And that, whatever there. But he said after that, he said, like, be where your feet are, and work hard wherever your feet are. Like, don't let that other realm influence that realm that you're
Interesting.
at. And I was like, that is so good, because I think, like, vice versa, like I will be at home and not be home because I'm thinking about work, and I'll be at work and not be thinking about work because I'm thinking about home. And I think by not having those designated in the right spot, like to give my all in each area while I have designated time to do so, makes me do each one worse. Because I think when you got a new baby and stuff, you're at work and you kind of feel like, like Cass is at home, still. And so at times it's like, oh gosh, I hope Lily's not abusing her too bad, like just crying in her face and stuff. And if Lily's grown up and listening to this someday, you're not abusing your mom. It's just something I say. But that just means you're screaming in her face. I've never really thought about that until just now. Like Lily ever listening to anything I ever say. There's another lesson. Words hold power.
And they're never
you can't take them back when they're on the internet. Unless you hire somebody really smart. Like Biden did. I don't even necessarily know what that applies to, but anyway, okay, moving on. But yeah, be where I think your feet are has been good for me with that. And that applies to a lot of things in life, like even like future, like goals and dreams and like things I could do down the line. It's like, just like be where you are and make that spot as good as you can make it and bless it as much as you can. Like, so I think that's been a lesson I've learned, and that's a hard one.
That's hard. I'd say I still struggle with that.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
actually maybe I think that's like what I maybe fight most is like being present,
for sure.
And not even just ministry wise, but just in life.
And it's funny because it's like you feel like you're doing the right thing by like when you're at home, you're like, oh, I didn't really have my mind on work that much. I really need to make up for that. Or vice versa. Oh, like you're at work and you're like, oh, I feel so bad for not being home. Like, but you don't work well. And then you're not at home well because you didn't work well,
Right.
And so I think that's been a lesson I've been trying to learn. I think I've got a lot of guilt around like going to work and all those things. So trying to work through all that and just realize like that's necessary. And just like be where God's put you and do it faithfully. And so,
and it's interesting for me, like
right now.
It's like either when I and I think you're talking about this, when I really struggle at like productivity at work, it's when I like struggle more at home.
Yeah.
Like, and it really does, it kind of turns into
because you don't feel like you can go home and like, okay, I can rest now.
It's like not a clear conscience. So you got to make up for that.
For sure. And so you kind of steal time from both realms, so that's probably not the biggest lesson I've learned, but that's what's on my mind right now.
That's good.
So
one thing I think kind of even like going off of that Dave said too, Dave, shout out Dave
Johnson.
He's an elder here at First B.
He used to be called Ponytail.
I don't know if anyone ever called him that. But it's just such a great guy. Him and his wife are just awesome. And anyway, but he said something. He went on sabbatical. A lot of our elders have been taking sabbaticals and stuff this year, just for health, like for their spiritual health, and just so that they can actually lead from a place of health. Anyway, one of the things he said when he came back from sabbatical, he said, we kind of like, Dave, what'd you learn? And if you know Dave at all, he's like very like philosophical. So it was a very Dave answer, but it's kind of been blowing my mind. But he said, what I'm learning is that I don't know much, but what I want to do, I want to live with what I know, or I want to live out with what I know, even though it's not much. It was something like that's butchered, but in the sense like
when you told me that the first time, it was much more like, I'm gonna get that tattooed.
Yeah, it was really good.
something to the effect of,
I'll work on it.
I don't know much, but I
want to live out what I do know.
I would live the little that I know.
Yeah. And I think that's part of that wisdom is it's like, I'm always like seeking something new, or I'm seeking like the next season, the next whatever, like the next adventure. Which there's some good places in that, but
I was just telling Cass, like Alan's been big on this. I think it's from Instruments in the Hands of the Redeemer. Maybe the redeemed version of like there's parts of who we are that are like for me, like I love change and I love new things. Yeah, Alan is the same. And new things, and I just really I like creating and like building things and all that. And I was just talking to Cass about it, but I was like, I think the redeemed version, because the bad version of that is that I'm not long term.
It's when you use the qualities God's given you, but you pervert them for your own gain, for your own.
For sure. And the perverted version for me is I am not consistent and long term with things that I've committed to. But the redeemed version, I was just telling Cass, is I think to channel all of that like ambition into realms that God has already like stewarded to me. Like for example, like Reach right now. Like I told Cass, like I think for me, what I am realizing right now is instead of like thinking about the next thing and doing something different and doing blah, 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 like I think I need to channel all of that into making, again, where your feet are as good as it can possibly be, like blessing it as much as you possibly can while you're there until God puts you somewhere different. Like,
yeah, well, like, I don't mean to interrupt, but like part of the reason like why school has been such a blessing is honestly even just like that simple truth. I used to feel a lot of guilt of like in some of the ways that God made me. Then same thing of like whether it was like change or like looking for the next thing, like Will saying, but like something that was even like mentioned to me was like, hey, like this part is it's a good thing, something God's created, and actually it can really serve His body. Like you can kind of continue to like push the church forward,
while also being a mixed bag probably too, right? Of like there's some things that are like for me, like discontentment, like there's like a fleshly aspect to that I need to repent of, but there's also that other side that's like a strength of like there's a lot of people that hate change and are like uncomfortable with like doing new things, taking risks.
I think that's how churches die, is because like in some ways there's not people that are pushing them forward to try new things, to like ask questions of like, well, why have we done that for 20 years or 30 years or even like for the last 2 years? Like, why are we doing that? Like, because I think if you don't have people who are looking for change, like then that it very easily, I think, can become stagnant. I think the flip side of that though is you can also whiplash people because of like, it's like, well, what are we doing this week? It's like, we're changing it all,
Yeah, for sure.
And so like I said, I think, I haven't read it, but Augustine, whatever way you want to say it. But he like his whole, and I haven't read it, but one of the ideas that he has is like the two cities of God, and he talks about like the heavenly city and then the earthly city. And it's just kind of a cool visual, like in a way of like, where am I living in some ways right now? Like it's kind of like that idea of like living in like the new, like redeemed way that we're free to now because of Christ and His work on the cross. And it's like, am I living for my own gain in like this worldly city, or am I working for the glory of God, like in this redeemed version? That doesn't mean I'm perfect, but in a lot of ways, like because of the grace that God's given, I get to look at some of the qualities that God's given me and to push forward for the kingdom of God, like, and build his city. The New Jerusalem. That's not what it's called. But anyway, it's just kind of interesting. Like when you kind of think of it that way of like, all right, where's my heart? Where's my actions? Where's all of that? Is it in this city or is it in this city? You know, and I got, obviously that's all over the Bible. Is this your flesh talking, or are you being led by the Spirit here? You know,
for sure.
Definitely. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the biggest, I don't think you said like your biggest lesson, right? I think you said
some
good
ways,
thing was seminary.
I am riding on the coattail of Dave Johnson. Okay. Just in a lot of ways, I think I've just been really humbled. Just continued. Like, I feel like since I've been a pastor, I've just been humbled that I don't know as much as I think I know. Like a couple of areas, like scholastically, I've been really humbled, going to school and just realizing I know nothing of church history. Like, it's like, obviously, like maybe I could talk about some of the creeds or something, but like actually looking into like who those brothers and sisters were who contended for the faith has been just so humbling. And I think the other thing I've just been humbled by is just pastoring, and like how to, like the struggle sometimes that it is of like helping people just to love Christ, you know, and like where my pride and my knowledge, like sometimes I get very prideful of like, I think I know what people are going through because it's a similar situation that I've been through. So I imply all of my baggage onto their situation. And then I try and counsel them through that situation or whatever. And it's like, well, I'm just counseling like my old situation. So I'm humbled of how little I know about the congregation in a lot of ways. And I'm humbled that I don't really know very much about pastoring itself. And it's weird because it's like, I feel like I live and breathe it a lot of ways, but at the same time, it feels like I don't know very much still, even though I'm on to year 3 here. So I think that's what I've learned, is that I just don't know much. And kind of, I guess, just going off what Dave said, like, how do I just live what I do know? Like, and that's going to just speak way more. I just think that we're very like content driven, like, as I think in the age that we're living in, like of the world, like everything's about information because information is so accessible. And so I just think like oftentimes we just equate like whether it's our faithfulness or whatever to like what we know or what we learned. Like, it's interesting if you ask people like, how are you doing? It's like, well, I learned this about God.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, no, like, that's not what I'm asking, you know?
For sure.
So anyway, that's kind of a side tangent,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm saying? I'm just humbled by how little I actually know, and how humbled, or how little I actually live what I do know. So
for sure. I saw something the other day about that. Like, it was like this worship guy. I think it was worship guy, but he was a leader of a band, and he would, like, before every time they'd play, he would like pray like, God, please use us. And then he, you know, felt like this conviction, like, what if I want to use somebody else? And he was like, he just went on this whole thing of like, is it enough for me to just be loved by God and not be like used by God, and not derive my value out of
what you do?
Yeah. And so kind of similar in terms of like it's not necessarily how much you know, like how much intellectual knowledge you have. It's
your heart, it's your being.
Yeah. And relationship with God of the universe, you know, like Adam and Eve aren't walking around the garden like, oh, I wish I just had more intellectual knowledge. Like, they're just with God, you know, like, and living with him. And
that doesn't mean like we don't, you know, there is like the verse that even Jesus says, like, love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so
mind is a part. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
With our intellect, but
yeah, definitely.
At the same time, I think that's usually like we swing the pendulum really far.
Oh yeah.
Over there, and then that's what we equate to,
for sure,
to faith, where it's really just about
and
like
leaders. too.
And actually, something you've really challenged me in, like, is even just like prayer life, because I would say that that's a place where you've really grown this year too.
Oh gosh,
Like, I feel like
I
that's
don't
like,
feel like that.
I feel like that's been like one of your priorities, though. Like from the outside looking in,
Well, that's encouraging.
I feel like you pray like because you desire to be with God, and that's really challenged me. Of like,
I think it's hard. Prayer is hard, man. Prayer is so hard because it's so like intangible. Like, I think the thing I've been learning most is the difference in conversation with God and a normal human in reference to how he responds, because he doesn't respond like verbally, like, oh,
the way that we're
hello,
used to
Will, how are you?
communicating. Yeah,
Like, but he responds through his word. And that's been cool because everybody, you always say that, and everybody always says that, and it's like, oh yeah, like God,
if you don't hear God, open your Bible.
Yeah, it's like shut up, like I know I'm not an idiot, like
Yeah.
but
And that's a true thing.
but it is like to actually like commit that to heart and believe it and go like, today I'm looking for God to speak to me, through his word. Like, and it's just crazy how often it's like perfect for where your heart is at. And like we're
Right.
doing, me and Cass doing a Bible reading plan. Well, it's kind of our own Bible reading plan, but we're just doing like 5 chapters a day through the whole Bible. And we're in 2 Kings right now. And I don't know, it's just crazy. Like things, like there was one day, I couldn't remember what was going on, but it was Elijah and him killing all the prophets of Baal. I don't know how everybody's
Baal.
There's like Baal. Is it Baal?
Yeah.
Everybody says it different. There's some like everybody says it different. Baal.
I think so. That's
You're the seminarian.
Bane.
I'll commit that to memory.
I was born in the
Baal.
darkness.
That's how I remember it. Wait, Baal?
Yeah.
Baal.
Baal.
Baal. I've heard people say Baal.
I mean, I don't know. Don't take my word.
If you know,
I've just always heard Baal.
If you know, put it in
the comments.
Because this is going on YouTube and Instagram, not the whole thing. And that's definitely not the part I'm putting on Instagram. What the heck? Oh, Elijah slaughters them. I think it's like 200 something of them. But then he like runs away, and God's trying to talk to him through, like not trying, that, you know what I mean? But he's like this, there's all these different scenarios. And then he like talks to him through a like whisper, like through this like really quiet, like you barely hear it. And it was like really cool how God really spoke to me in that moment. Like, so I think that has been cool because I journal most of my prayers. I think like I write them down and kind of pray as I'm writing, because I just get so sidetracked in my mind if I don't like, so I kind of like pray before, like, God, I just come before you. And then I just kind of like write in his presence, which feels, I don't know. It just feels like prayer's hard because it's just so, you feel like, oh, I'm not doing it the spiritual way.
I think that the expectations that prayer is usually put on the Christian is what's hard.
For sure. And I would say pretty influenced by the charismatic movement.
Yeah.
Like that you're supposed to have, like you go to a event or something, like everybody's like ultra spiritualed out, like, oh God. And it's just like, oh gosh, when I pray, I don't really feel like, I'm just like,
one thing that my
God.
professor said that was like really encouraging to me. And he was just like, we like always like make such a big deal of like, some of like the like giants of the faith, how they used to like get up at 3:30 a.m. and like pray all morning. And all of us are like, how do we do that? And he said, also, they didn't have light bulbs then, so they were going to bed at 5. And I was like, that is so helpful.
That's so funny.
Like, because sometimes I feel like the expectation is like, you're not actually like a spiritual, like, like I said, like there's like these expectations of prayer, of like, you got to wake up at 3:30 and you got to put like dents on like the floorboard from your knees being on the floor. And
Is
it's
that
like
John Wesley.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like, those are great things. Like, I'm not bashing that by any means, but we also just have to remember, like, we got to take the whole context of what we've heard about those those people.
And not
And we
turn
can't-
prayer into not like the same thing we do with knowledge,
Right.
You know, as like your badge of like serious Christian, you know, like,
Right.
like,
Like-
oh, well, how long did you pray this morning? I prayed for 4 hours.
And the cool thing is like I said, that one of the phrases I think that probably a lot of people use, but we use here at First B is like, it's not a have to, it's a get to. And it's like, you get to write your prayers in the presence of
Yep.
the Father. And like,
sure.
that should be worth, like, the crazy thing is that shouldn't produce guilt in you. Like,
Mhm.
but that should produce joy. But because of all these like expectations that we have around prayer, and not to say that we shouldn't learn like about prayer from some of those guys, because there's some men who are just amazing, like prayer warriors,
women.
you know. So I'm not saying negate everything they say by any means, but I think we just have to look at the context fully of some of what we hear around prayer, and it should produce a joy, even if it is 10 minutes. Like, okay, do I want to pray longer? Yeah. But like, even if it's like 10 minutes, it's like that should produce joy, not guilt.
Yeah, for
you
sure,
know, because
for
we
sure.
get to,
Definitely.
which is hard, easier said than done. Because I'm usually with you. I'm just kind of processing out here. So
one encouragement, because we're getting close on time.
Mhm.
One encouragement for somebody, an individual as they enter the new year.
I think this is what you said
Oh.
actually in your sermon yesterday.
Yes.
I think, was it you? I bumped my elbow and now it's got a protuberance. Yeah, I think you just said like, hey, this year could be a terrible year. Like, and I love that, because usually what you hear around this time of year, it's like 2023 is going to be like
The year of the goatee.
the year of the goatee, and we're going gluten free. Like, but
That's
in a way,
usually what
it's
you
like
hear.
it's going to be the best year of our lives. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna, and it's just like,
I'm gonna go.
honestly,
to the gym.
it's not like, it's not going to be the best year of your life. Like, and that's like, can be discouraging. But what you said is like, but Jesus reigns. Like, Jesus reigns and he's in control. And I think it's like, yeah, there could be a lot of things that we go through this year. It's like, but if Jesus is in control, like, and he loves me more than I love me, like, and he knows my heart more than I know my heart. There's just a lot of encouragement there. So I'd say like for 2023, like, just remember God reigns. And it could be a terrible year. But like, that doesn't negate from God's goodness, and that you still get to, like I said, pray with him, read about him, talk to him, like, you know, be loved by him. So that's what I would say. What about you?
I think the suffering thing is good.
How do we want to encourage people? You're going to suffer.
You're gonna die. Well, I just think like I have like a lot of ambitions and a lot of goals that are gonna fail. Like probably most of them, honestly, are not gonna work out.
I will say, I used to think I was an ideas guy, and I would even say that I thought I was the ideas guy, like out of our group, like meaning me and you and our wives. Like, and I've got a lot of ideas, but I would say that you have ramped up your ideas. It's been unbelievable.
I've had to pray and just like, God, like take these away. Like I've felt I've felt crippled by just, here's how it feels.
all of my entrepreneurial
Here's how my
gifts.
mind feels. I don't know if this is depression, like clinically, or no, I don't think it is. It's something mentally.
Mhm.
I feel like a waterfall of like, do this is just smacking my brain, and I don't know how to get out from under the waterfall. Other than ask the Lord to help me.
Yeah,
Probably it's not bad.
probably
It's
because
just
of a lot of what we were
overwhelming.
talking about,
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
like
It's
finding our worth in what we
for
do,
sure.
and not who
Yeah.
like,
And
in
money.
the being of
money,
everything.
like love of money, Matthew 6. Like I've realized, this is not what I was going to say, but I've realized love of money doesn't necessarily mean I want more money. So, or whatever. I think love of money can be like a super dysfunctional relationship with money, where it consumes all my thoughts and my mind, even if it's not like what we usually deem as like a normal greed for,
it's
I
not
want
just
more.
materialism.
It can be
It's at
it
the
can be
altar
like
of your
a
heart.
poverty shift of where you just love money. You think about it all the time. Okay, bye.